The sun hung low over the quiet streets of Maplewood, casting long shadows across the sidewalks. It was one of those small Midwest towns where everyone knew each other, or thought they did. The air carried the faint smell of freshly cut grass and distant barbecues, but beneath this peaceful veneer, tension simmered like a pot about to boil over. Maya Johnson stepped out of the local grocery store, her arms laden with brown paper bags. She had come home to visit her family after months away serving as an Army Ranger. For Maya, these trips were always bittersweet. On one hand, she cherished the chance to reconnect with Marcus, her younger brother, and enjoy some semblance of normalcy. On the other hand, being back meant facing old prejudices that never seemed to fade, no matter how far she traveled or how much she achieved. She walked briskly down Main Street, her boots clicking lightly against the pavement. Her dark eyes scanned the area absent-mindedly, taking in the familiar sights. The diner where she used to work summers, the gas station with its flickering neon sign, and the park where kids laughed as they chased each other around swings. But today something felt off. There was an unusual energy buzzing through the town, almost palpable in the crisp autumn air. As she neared the edge of the park, Maya noticed a growing crowd gathered under the shade of tall oak trees. At first glance, it looked like any ordinary gathering, a mix of locals milling about, chatting animatedly. But then she saw the signs. Bright red letters screamed hateful slogans targeting minorities, immigrants, and anyone who didn't fit into their narrow definition of American. Protesters chanted loudly, their voices echoing off nearby buildings. Some passers-by stopped to listen, nodding along while others hurried past, heads bowed, trying not to make eye contact. Maya slowed her pace, debating whether to turn back. She wasn't looking for trouble, especially not today. All she wanted was to get home, unload the groceries, and spend time with her family. Yet curiosity tugged at her, urging her to take a closer look. As she hesitated, two men broke away from the group and started heading toward her. One was tall and lanky with a scruffy beard, while the other was shorter but stockier, his face flushed with anger. They wore matching baseball caps emblazoned with symbols associated with hate groups. "Hey!" the taller man called out, his voice sharp and accusatory. Maya froze, her grip tightening on the grocery bags. She recognized him immediately. He went by Greg, a known troublemaker in town who thrived on stirring up drama wherever he went. His companion, Kyle, smirked beside him, cracking his knuckles deliberately. "You don't belong here," Greg sneered, stopping just a few feet away. His gaze raked over her dismissively, lingering on her skin tone before returning to her face. "Go back to where you came from." Maya's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She'd heard such comments before, both in uniform overseas and even back home. Experience had taught her that engaging rarely ended well. Sometimes silence spoke, louder than words. Still, standing there quietly took every ounce of self-control she possessed. Kyle stepped forward, his expression twisted with contempt. "What? Nothing to say? Too scared?" He let out a mocking laugh, glancing back at Greg. For approval, the pair clearly enjoyed playing good cop, bad cop, feeding off each other's aggression. A trickle of sweat ran down Maya's temple despite the cool breeze. She shifted slightly, positioning herself so she could see both men without turning, her back completely. Years of military training kicked in automatically, sharpening her senses and steadying her nerves. Even though they outnumbered her, she knew she could handle them if push came to shove. The question was whether it would come to that, and whether she wanted it to. Greg took another step closer, closing the gap between them until he was practically breathing down her neck. "I'm talking to you," he snapped, his voice rising. "You deaf or something?" Maya finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. Her dark eyes burned with quiet intensity, unflinching despite the hostility radiating from him. "I heard you," she replied evenly, her voice calm but firm. "And I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, Greg faltered, caught off guard by her composure. Most people cowered when confronted like this, either apologizing profusely or retreating altogether. But Maya stood her ground, exuding a quiet confidence that unnerved him. Sensing his hesitation, Kyle decided to take matters into his own hands. Before Maya could react, Kyle lunged forward, shoving her hard enough to send the grocery bags tumbling to the ground. Apples rolled across the sidewalk, and a carton of eggs cracked open, spilling its contents onto the pavement. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers who had been watching the confrontation unfold. Maya staggered slightly but quickly regained her balance. Her heart pounded in her chest, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Every instinct screamed at her to fight back, to teach these men a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. But she forced herself to pause, weighing her options carefully. Violence might feel satisfying in the moment, but it could also escalate the situation unnecessarily. Besides, she didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her lose control. Instead, she bent down slowly, retrieving one of the fallen items, a loaf of bread crushed underfoot. Holding it up briefly, she turned to face Greg and Kyle once more. "Is this really what you're proud of?" she asked, her tone icy. "Bullying someone because of the color of their skin? Because if it is, you're pathetic." Her words hit a nerve. Greg scowled, his fists clenching at his sides. "Don't act all high and mighty," he spat. "You think you're better than us?" Maya straightened, her posture rigid yet relaxed, like a coiled spring ready to strike. "No," she said simply. "But I know I'm stronger." That was all it took. Kyle charged at her again, swinging wildly. This time, however, Maya was prepared. With lightning speed, she sidestepped his attack, grabbing his wrist mid-swing and twisting it behind his back. He yelped in pain, struggling to break free, but her grip was ironclad. Before Greg could intervene, she pivoted smoothly, using Kyle's momentum to throw him off balance. He landed awkwardly on the ground, groaning in agony. Greg stared in shock, momentarily frozen. Then, realizing he was now alone, he reached for the baton strapped to his belt. But Maya was faster. She disarmed him effortlessly, snatching the weapon from his grasp and spinning it around until it pointed directly at him. "Try me," she challenged, her voice low and dangerous. Greg raised his hands defensively, backing away. Behind him, Kyle scrambled to his feet, clutching his injured arm. Neither man dared to make another move. The crowd erupted into murmurs, some applauding Maya's quick thinking, while others whispered nervously among themselves. Without another word, Maya tossed the baton aside and bent down to gather her scattered belongings. Her movements were deliberate and unhurried, betraying none of the adrenaline still coursing through her system. When she finished, she straightened, glanced once more at the humiliated men and walked away, leaving the scene in stunned silence. Unbeknownst to her, a young woman named Lily had captured the entire encounter on her phone. Standing on the fringes of the crowd, Lily watched wide-eyed as Maya disappeared around the corner. Little did Maya know this moment would change everything, for her, for the town, and for countless others watching online. Maya walked briskly down the sidewalk, her grocery bags now tucked securely under one arm. Her heart still raced from the adrenaline coursing through her veins, though she tried to appear calm on the outside. She replayed the incident in her mind, the shove, the threats, and finally, the moment she decided enough was enough. It wasn't pride that fueled her actions. It was survival. Years of military training had taught her how to stay composed under pressure, how to assess threats quickly, and most importantly, how to protect herself without hesitation. As she turned onto a quieter street leading toward her childhood home, Maya noticed a car parked haphazardly by the curb. Its engine idled softly, and inside sat a young woman gripping her phone tightly. The woman's wide eyes locked onto Maya, and before Maya could react, the stranger rolled down her window. "Excuse me," the woman called out, her voice trembling slightly. "Are you okay? I saw what happened back there." Maya slowed her pace and nodded curtly. "I'm fine," she said simply, not wanting to engage further. She didn't recognize the woman, but something about her earnest expression made Maya pause. "I filmed everything," the woman continued, holding up her phone. "What those guys did. It was wrong. People need to see this." For a moment, Maya felt conflicted. On one hand, she understood why the woman wanted to share the footage. Incidents like this happened far too often, hidden away or ignored until someone dared to shine a light on them. But on the other hand, Maya knew all too well the risks of drawing attention to herself. Being in the spotlight meant inviting scrutiny, judgment, and sometimes even danger. Still, she couldn't deny that seeing justice served might help prevent similar situations in the future. "Do what you think is right," Maya replied after a beat. "But be careful who you trust." With that, she resumed walking, leaving the woman, whose name she later learned was Lily, staring after her with a mix of awe and determination. Back at her family home, Maya set the groceries on the kitchen counter and exhaled deeply. The house smelled faintly of lavender, a scent her mother always kept burning in the living room. Marcus, her younger brother, lounged on the couch flipping through channels when he heard her come in. "You're back early," he remarked casually, glancing over his shoulder. When he saw her face, though, his tone shifted. "Whoa, what happened to you?" Maya shrugged, avoiding his gaze as she unpacked the groceries. "Nothing serious, just some idiots trying to pick a fight." Marcus frowned, sitting up straighter. "What kind of idiots? What did they do?" She hesitated, weighing how much to tell him. Marcus had always looked up to her, idolizing her strength and resilience. But she didn't want to burden him with details, especially since he already worried about her safety whenever she came home. "They were part of that protest group downtown," she explained vaguely. "Said some nasty stuff, got physical. But I handled it." Marcus raised an eyebrow skeptically. "You handled it? Like army-style handled it?" Maya smirked, despite herself. "Let's just say they won't try anything like that again anytime soon." Before Marcus could press her for more information, their mother walked into the room, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Is everything all right?" she asked, noticing the tension between her children. "You both look like you've seen a ghost." "It's nothing, Mom," Maya assured her, forcing a smile. "Just a little run-in with some troublemakers. Nothing I couldn't handle." Her mother studied her for a long moment before nodding. Slowly. "Well, dinner will be ready soon. Why don't we focus on that instead?" Dinner provided a welcome distraction, filling the house with warmth and laughter as the family caught up on each other's lives. Yet even as Maya joined in, the conversation part of her mind remained preoccupied. She wondered if anyone else had witnessed the altercation, or worse, if Greg and Kyle would retaliate once they recovered from their humiliation. Later that evening, as Maya scrolled through social media on her phone, she discovered the answer to her unspoken question. Dozens of notifications flooded her screen, along with a video that had clearly gone viral. It showed every detail of the confrontation: Kyle lunging at her, her precise movements disarming him, and finally, Greg backing away in defeat. The caption read, "Woman takes down racist protesters in epic showdown." Comments poured in from strangers across the country, praising her bravery and condemning the attackers. Some users speculated about her background, guessing she must have martial arts training or possibly law enforcement experience. Others shared stories of their own encounters with racism, thanking her for standing up against hate. While the support was overwhelming, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of unease creeping over her. Fame wasn't something she sought, nor was it something she welcomed. The next morning, local news outlets picked up the story, dubbing her the fearless shopper and speculating about her identity. Reporters began digging deeper, uncovering photos of her in uniform and snippets of her military service record. By midday, her phone buzzed nonstop with calls from journalists eager to interview her. Even Marcus joked half-heartedly about signing autographs on her behalf. Despite the chaos surrounding her newfound notoriety, Maya refused to let it consume her. She spent the day helping her mother clean out the attic, sorting through old boxes filled with memories. Among the dusty photo albums and forgotten trinkets, she found a framed picture of herself during basic training, a younger version of herself staring confidently into the camera, her posture radiating strength and purpose. Looking at it now reminded her of why she chose this path in the first place: to serve, to protect, and to inspire change. That evening, As the sun dipped below the horizon, Maya sat on the front porch watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. Marcus joined her, handing her a glass of lemonade before settling into the chair beside her. "So," he began hesitantly, "what happens now?" Maya took a sip of her drink, contemplating his question. "I don't know," she admitted, "but whatever comes next, I'll face it head on. That's what we do, right? We adapt, overcome, and keep moving forward." Marcus grinned, clearly proud of his big sister. "Yeah, we do." Unbeknownst to either of them, the events of the past few days had already set wheels in motion that would ripple far beyond Maplewood. For better or worse, Maya's actions had ignited a spark, one that would grow into a flame challenging the status quo and inspiring countless others to stand up against injustice. And though she couldn't predict exactly where this journey would lead, one thing was certain: Maya Johnson was ready for whatever came next. The next day brought a flurry of activity that neither Maya nor her family had anticipated. Reporters parked outside their house, cameras clicking away as they tried to capture glimpses of the woman who had become an overnight sensation. Local news vans lined the street, their satellite dishes pointing skyward like metallic trees. Neighbors whispered behind fences, some offering support while others muttered about unwanted attention being drawn to their quiet town. Inside the house, Maya sat on the couch, staring at her phone as notifications buzzed incessantly. Every few seconds, another message popped up: a friend congratulating her, a stranger thanking her, or a journalist asking for an interview. She scrolled absent-mindedly, feeling both overwhelmed and uneasy. This wasn't how she imagined spending her visit home. All she wanted was peace and time with her family, not headlines and scrutiny. Marcus plopped down beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Maya before taking a sip from his own. "You okay?" he asked softly, studying her face. Maya sighed, setting the phone aside. "I don't know," she admitted. "It's just too much. I didn't ask for any of this." "I get it," Marcus said, nodding. "But people are talking about you for all the right reasons. You stood up to those jerks when no one else would. That's huge." Maya managed a faint smile, appreciating her brother's attempt to lift her spirits. Still, she couldn't shake the nagging worry gnawing at her mind. Fame came with consequences, especially in a place like Maplewood where tensions ran high. She knew Greg and Kyle wouldn't take their public humiliation lightly. They might try to retaliate, not just against her, but possibly against her family too. Their mother entered the room carrying a tray of snacks, her usual calm demeanor masking the stress she must have been feeling. "Here," she said, placing the tray on the coffee table. "Eat something, you need your strength." "Thanks, Mom," Maya replied, though she doubted food could ease the knot in her stomach. Her mother sat across from them, folding her hands neatly in her lap. "What are you going to do?" her mother asked gently. "About everything?" Maya hesitated, unsure how to answer. "For now, nothing," she said finally. "I'm not giving interviews or making statements. If people want to talk about what happened, fine. But I won't. Let them turn me into some kind of spectacle." Her mother nodded approvingly. "Good, stay strong, sweetheart, we're here for you." As the morning wore on, Maya decided to step outside for some fresh air. She slipped out the back door, avoiding the reporters camped at the front of the house. The backyard offered a brief reprieve from the chaos, a patch of green grass bordered by tall hedges with a single oak tree providing shade. She leaned against the trunk, closing her eyes and letting the cool breeze wash over her. Her moment of solitude was interrupted by the sound of footsteps crunching on gravel. Turning, she saw Lily, the young woman who had filmed the altercation, approaching cautiously. Lily held her phone tightly in one hand, looking nervous but determined. "Hey," Lily said softly. "Can we talk?" Maya studied her for a moment, before nodding. "Sure." Lily stepped closer, glancing around as if checking for eavesdroppers. "I posted the video online last night," she began. "It blew up faster than I expected. People are calling you a hero." Maya chuckled dryly. "Yeah, well, heroes don't usually end up dodging reporters and worrying about revenge attacks. winced. I thought about that, and I'm sorry if it caused trouble for you. But I also think it's important for people to see what really happened. Too often these kinds of stories stay hidden. Maya crossed her arms, considering Lily's words. You're not wrong, she conceded. But exposing hate doesn't always stop it. Sometimes it makes things worse. That's true, Lily agreed. But silence doesn't help either. Look, I'm not trying to make your life harder. I want to do something meaningful with this. Maybe turn it into a bigger project, a documentary or something, to show how prejudice affects real people. Maya raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. What kind of project? A series of interviews, Lily explained eagerly. With you, with victims of racism, with activists fighting for change. Something that sheds light on the issue instead of sweeping it under the rug. Maya mulled it over, weighing the risks and rewards. On one hand, participating in such a project meant opening herself up to even more attention. On the other hand, it could be an opportunity to amplify voices that often went unheard. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. If you're serious about this, I'll help, she said. But only if we do it carefully. No exploiting anyone's pain for views. Lily smiled, relief washing over her face. Thank you. You won't regret it. Over the next few days, Maya worked closely with Lily to plan the documentary. They met secretly in quiet locations, libraries, parks, and empty cafes, discussing ideas and strategies. Meanwhile, the fallout from the viral video continued to spread. Greg and Kyle became pariahs in the community, shunned even by former supporters who feared association with their toxic behavior. Their names appeared in articles dissecting the incident, painting them as villains in a story they never intended to lose control of. One evening, as Maya returned home after meeting with Lily, she found Marcus waiting for her in the driveway. His expression was grim, and he held a folded piece of paper in his hand. What's wrong? Maya asked, her heart sinking. This was taped to the front door, Marcus said, handing her the note. It read, "Watch your back, traitor." Maya clenched her jaw, crumpling the note in her fist. Threats like this were nothing new, but seeing them directed at her family stoked a deep anger within her. For years she had fought battles far from home, protecting freedoms she believed in. Now she realized the fight had followed her back, demanding she stand firm once again. Instead of fear, determination took root inside her. She wouldn't let hatred dictate her life, or her family's safety. If anything, the threat strengthened her resolve to use her platform wisely. With Lily's help, she began reaching out to local organizations, connecting with activists and leaders eager to collaborate. Together, they crafted a narrative that celebrated resilience, unity, and hope. By the end of the week, news outlets reported that Greg and Kyle had been fired from their jobs due to public backlash. Their attempts to rally support fell flat, leaving them isolated and bitter. Meanwhile, Maya's story inspired countless others to speak out against injustice, proving that courage could spark change even in the darkest corners. Though challenges lay ahead, Maya felt ready to face them. She had faced danger before, both overseas and at home, and emerged stronger each time. This chapter of her life might be unexpected, but it was also undeniable proof that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, could ignite a movement far greater than oneself. As she stood on the porch that night, gazing at the stars twinkling above, Maya allowed herself a small smile. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she knew she wasn't walking it alone, and sometimes that made all the difference. The mayor of Maplewood had seen enough. The town was tearing itself apart, divided between those who supported the racist protesters and those who condemned them. The viral video of Maya Johnson taking down Greg and Kyle had sparked heated debates across the country, but locally it only deepened the rift. Threats against Maya and her family continued to trickle in, scrawled on notes or whispered over phone calls. Meanwhile, the remaining members of the protest group refused to back down, blaming Maya for ruining their reputation and demanding justice for their mistreated comrades. Desperate to restore order, the mayor decided to hold a public meeting at City Hall. He invited Maya to speak, hoping her presence might calm the growing unrest. It was a risky move, bringing someone so polarizing into the spotlight, but he believed her story could bridge the divide. After much deliberation, Maya agreed to attend. She didn't want to become a symbol or a martyr, but she recognized the opportunity to use her voice for something bigger than herself. On the day of the event, the streets surrounding City Hall were packed with people. Protesters waved their hateful signs, chanting slogans that echoed off nearby buildings. Supporters of Maya held counter-protests, carrying banners that read, "Stand against hate" and "Justice for all." The air buzzed with tension as both sides prepared for what promised to be a volatile confrontation. Maya arrived dressed in her Army Ranger uniform, a deliberate choice meant to remind everyone of her service and sacrifice. Her polished boots clicked against the pavement as she walked toward the podium, flanked by police officers keeping a close watch on the crowd. Cameras flashed, capturing every step she took. Some in the audience cheered, while others booed loudly. Through it all, Maya remained unfazed, her expression calm and focused. When she reached the microphone, the noise gradually died down, though murmurs still rippled through the crowd. Maya scanned the sea of faces before her, angry, curious, hopeful, and took a deep breath. Then she began to speak. "I didn't come here today to start a fight," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I came here because I believe in this town. I believe in its potential to grow, to heal, and to change, but most importantly, I believe in us, the people standing here right now." Her words caught many off guard. Instead of lashing out or playing the victim, Maya spoke with empathy and conviction. She shared stories from her time in the military, describing how soldiers from different backgrounds worked together despite their differences. She talked about the sacrifices made not just by her but by countless others fighting for freedom and equality, and she emphasized the importance of unity, urging the crowd to see each other as neighbors rather than enemies. "For too long, we've let fear and ignorance drive us apart," she continued. "We've allowed hate to take root in our communities, poisoning everything it touches. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can choose kindness over cruelty, understanding over judgment. We can build a future where no one has to live in fear because of the color of their skin, their religion, or who they love." Her speech resonated with many in the audience, earning applause from supporters. Tears welled up in some eyes while others nodded in agreement. Even a few former skeptics found themselves moved by her sincerity. However, not everyone was swayed. From the back of the crowd, a faction of extremists broke away, led by none other than Greg and Kyle. Their faces burned with humiliation and rage as they pushed through the throng, heading straight for the stage. They shouted obscenities, accusing Maya of lying and manipulating the truth. When they reached the front, they lunged at her, determined to silence her once and for all. But Maya was ready. Years of training kicked in instantly as she sidestepped their clumsy attack. With precision and control, she disarmed Greg of the baton he carried, using it to subdue him and Kyle within seconds. The crowd gasped in shock as the two men collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. Police officers rushed forward, arresting them on the spot. The failed attack further tarnished the reputation of the protest group, turning even more townspeople against them. Videos of the incident spread online almost immediately, drawing widespread condemnation from across the nation. Critics labeled the extremists as cowards, while supporters praised Maya's courage and skill. Overnight, the narrative shifted, decisively in her favor. In the days that followed, the town of Maplewood began to heal. Many residents who had initially supported the protest group distanced themselves, ashamed of their association. Local businesses posted signs declaring their commitment to inclusivity, and community leaders organized events aimed at fostering dialogue and understanding. The mayor credited Maya's speech and actions with sparking this positive change, calling her a true hero. Meanwhile, Maya continued working with Lily on their documentary project. They traveled to nearby cities, interviewing victims of racism, activists, and educators dedicated to combating prejudice. Each story added depth and perspective to the film, transforming it into a powerful call for action. As word of the project spread, donations poured in from supporters eager to help amplify its message. Though threats against Maya persisted, she refused to let fear dictate her life. She installed security cameras around her family's home and taught Marcus basic self-defense techniques. More importantly, she leaned on her loved ones for support, knowing she couldn't face everything alone. Her mother often reminded her that strength wasn't about never feeling afraid. It was about moving forward despite the fear. One evening, as Maya sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily joined her, carrying a laptop. "I finished editing. The first draft of the documentary," she announced excitedly. "Want to watch it?" Maya hesitated, unsure if she was ready to relive everything that had happened. But curiosity got the better of her, and she nodded. Together they watched the film unfold on the screen, tears streaming down their faces as they saw the impact of their work. By the end, Maya felt a sense of pride, not just in herself, but in the countless others who had contributed to the project. "This is going to make a difference," Lily said softly, wiping her eyes. "People will see it and realize they're not alone." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with hope. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. The road ahead would still be challenging, filled with obstacles and setbacks, but she knew she wasn't walking it alone, and sometimes that made all the difference. As darkness fell over Maplewood, Maya stood up, stretching her arms toward the stars. The fight wasn't over, but she was ready for whatever came next. After all, she had faced danger before and emerged stronger each time. This chapter of her life might have been unexpected, but it was also undeniable proof that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, could ignite a movement far greater than oneself. And with that thought, Maya stepped back inside, ready to face tomorrow. The weeks following the failed attack at City Hall brought about significant changes in Maplewood. The protest group that had once stirred so much hatred and division dissolved almost overnight, its remaining members too ashamed or afraid to continue their crusade. Greg and Kyle faced multiple charges, including assault and inciting violence, leaving them isolated and disgraced. Their downfall served as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked aggression and prejudice. For Maya Johnson, life began to settle into a new rhythm. While the initial frenzy of media attention had died down, her story continued to resonate far beyond the borders of her small town. Messages of gratitude poured in daily from people across the country, parents thanking her for setting an example for their children, veterans expressing pride in her actions, and strangers sharing how her courage inspired them to stand up against injustice in their own lives. Though Maya never sought fame, she embraced the opportunity to use her platform for good. The documentary project with Lily took shape beautifully, evolving into something greater than either of them had imagined. Titled Courage Without Compromise, the film wove together personal stories of resilience, highlighting not only Maya's experience but also those of countless others who had faced racism and discrimination head-on. From a young student bullied at school for his cultural heritage to an elderly woman denied housing because of her ethnicity, each narrative added depth and humanity to the overarching message. No one should have to endure hate alone. When the documentary premiered online, it quickly gained traction, sparking conversations in households, classrooms, and community centers nationwide. Viewers praised its raw honesty and emotional impact, calling it a wake-up call for anyone complacent in the face of inequality. Schools incorporated it into their curriculums, using it as a tool to teach empathy and tolerance. Activists screened it at rallies, urging attendees to channel their outrage into meaningful action. Maya traveled alongside Lily to promote the film, speaking at events and engaging with audiences eager to learn more. She shared her journey openly, her struggles growing up in a divided town, her decision to join the military, and her unwavering belief in the power of unity. Though reliving painful memories wasn't easy, she found solace in knowing her words were making a difference. Every standing ovation, every heartfelt thank you note reinforced her conviction that change was possible. One conversation, one act of kindness at a time. Back home, Maplewood transformed in subtle but profound ways. Community leaders organized workshops and forums aimed at fostering understanding between residents. Local businesses pledged to hire inclusively and support minority-owned enterprises. Even the annual town fair adopted a theme celebrating diversity, featuring performances, art exhibits, and food representing cultures from around the world. Slowly but surely, the scars of division began to heal, replaced by bonds of mutual respect and cooperation. Marcus noticed the shift most acutely. Once hesitant to speak out against injustice, he now joined local advocacy groups, determined to carry forward the legacy his sister had sparked. He often joked that he'd become the family activist, though there was genuine pride in his voice. Their mother, too, embraced the change, hosting neighborhood gatherings where neighbors could connect over shared meals and stories. Despite these positive developments, Maya knew the fight was far from over. Racism wasn't confined to one town or region. It was a systemic issue requiring sustained effort and vigilance. But she also recognized progress when she saw it, no matter how small. Each smile exchanged between former adversaries, each handshake, bridging divides reminded her why the struggle mattered. Eventually, Maya received orders to return to active duty. Saying goodbye to her family wasn't easy, especially after everything they'd been through together. Yet she felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing her work extended beyond Maplewood. As she packed her bags, Marcus handed her a framed photo, the same one she'd found in the attic months earlier, showing her during basic training. "For strength," he said simply, hugging her tightly. On her final morning in town, Maya rose early, slipping outside before dawn. The air was crisp, tinged with the promise of a new day. She climbed a nearby hill overlooking the outskirts of Maplewood, watching as the sun painted the horizon in hues of gold and pink. Below her, soldiers trained in formation, their movements synchronized and precise, a testament to teamwork and discipline. As she stood there gazing at the sprawling landscape, Maya reflected on all that had transpired. She thought about the fear she'd felt facing Greg and Kyle, the uncertainty of stepping into the spotlight, and the joy of seeing her community come together. These experiences had tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated, but they had also strengthened her resolve. She realized now that bravery wasn't the absence of fear, it was choosing to move forward despite it. Maya smiled softly, feeling a deep sense of peace wash over her. The road ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but she was ready. Armed, with lessons learned and hearts touched along the way, she stepped forward confidently, embracing whatever lay ahead. Whether defending her country overseas or advocating for justice back home, she knew her mission remained the same: to inspire hope, foster unity, and prove that even in the darkest moments, light could prevail. With the rising sun casting its glow upon her, Maya descended the hill, ready to rejoin her unit and continue serving with honor. Behind her, Maplewood stirred awake, a town forever changed by the courage of one fearless woman. And though she may have walked away, her spirit lingered, a beacon of resilience guiding others toward a brighter future. Her journey wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who dared to dream of a better world.